to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Hey, it's Tom Dutta like butter here on the west coast of British Columbia. I got a big treat for you today. There's actually a guy, he's in the green room there, and this guy's a really interesting guy. We are actually just having some fun with each other. Let me tell you a bit about him. Before I do that, let me tell you about live streaming. So the thing is, live streaming is next generation of broadcasting, podcasting. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and now recently we've been added to Rumble. And so what does that mean? It means that you can chat in the chat feature, and in the studio I can see your comments. We can put them on the screen, bring that into the production. What we're doing here is live. You're peeking into the studio of what it looks like, bloopers and all. We'll be reproducing this into a podcast and a YouTube premiere video. That'll go out there and honor our guest all over the world with his incredible story. His name is Jesse Hernandez Jr., and I joked with him. When you look at his name out spelled, it's J-E-S-U-S, Jesus. And I said, everybody, when they see that, wants to talk to you. Well, at least I do as a baptized Christian. He's the founder of Depth Builder LLC, helps leaders deepen their communication skills, build trust through improvement initiatives. He does this by shining a light on common blind spots, teaching leaders how to adjust their approach and ensure buy-in amongst their employees. He's passionate about vulnerability and the human side of work. He focuses on serving leaders, meeting them where they are, and helping them get unstuck and find agency. Now, if you got that bio, which I do as a podcast producer, I get agents or people sending me bios. You go, okay, that's nice. But then I ask Jesse a single question. As you know, I ask everybody, why are you a fit for the Quiet Warrior Show? Which really means that's BS. I mean, that's a nice little bio, but what's the gut punches? What's all the stuff behind that? And oh my God, what I got back, including this little baby, the book that he sent me, he's kind of like sends me this, I read that. I read it and I went, that ain't that. That is so much more than that and so much more awesome. So on that note, and I'm sure he's probably a little, tell him, shut up, just get me on here. Welcome to Jesus. Jesse, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Mr. Tom?
Hey, a lot is going on. How's things there down in San Antonio, Texas? Because we're over here on the west coast of Canada where it's beautifully sunny. I know you got some things going on.
Yeah, we got some overcast, a little bit of humidity. Not a great hair day today, but I think I'll make it.
Not a great hair day today. What are you talking about? People can't see the video, but look at my head, man. By the way, this was a COVID malfunction. I tried doing a little self-razor during COVID, and I messed it up, and my daughter actually said, I shaved it off. My daughter said, it looks good, Dad, so it's always been. Anyway, enough of that. Look at what we got here. We got something on the screen here. Jesse, there's your brother. Jesse, it's going down. I gotta love that. How'd you get your brother to look just like you? All right, now listen, we're going to start off and we're all about storytelling. So Jesse, we're going to get right into the what we call Plato's Garden. Are you ready for Plato's Garden? Now I'll explain that to you, but everybody, if you're on the video, you'll see some things on screen. If you're podcasting, you'll hear us. All right, we're back, and you're probably wondering, what was that all about? Well, let me tell you, we've got a few things that we're going to share about Plato's Garden. So Jesse, you've heard of Plato, I'm sure, somewhere in your travels?
Yes, once or twice.
All right. Well, you know what? I started a doctoral degree. The reason why I'm saying this is not to put the spotlight on me. This show and all the episodes I'm doing in the next year or so are going to be part of my thesis. So you get to be part of transforming the world, and it's just an honor. Plato's Garden. Plato, in 427 BC or so, was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece. He's a founder of the Platonist school of thought in the academy. Now, what's really cool is the word academia, academy, comes from that, and that was a Greek word. So Jesse, this was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. If we go a little bit further, what we're going to do, and remarkably, when I read your book and learned about you, I think in 3 areas. What influenced the context, meaning what influenced you to go out and do what you're doing in the world now with your public work? Because you were once just born a guy. And so the first area, don't worry about memorizing any of this, but this will frame what we do, is macro. What was happening in the world around you that would have influenced how you got into your public work? I know from the book and all those things, that started right at childhood. Number 2 is meso. Meso is what was happening in your industry that influenced your public work. Your industry, will learn, is probably construction and things like that. And number 3, Jesse, is micro. This is the one I love because this is really where it starts. It's about what's happening in you personally in your life that influence your public works. So are you ready to, I'm going to remove that off the screen. Are you ready to get riffing a bit about Plato's Garden?
Let's do it.
All right. One last thing. You gave me a gift, so we're going to put something else on the screen. And I'm going to play a short audio track, and then I want you to open it up and talk to us about it. This is the Spotify version of Jesse's awesome book. Jesse, do me a favor. You've got the book with you there somewhere, I think.
I sure do.
All right. So read us out the title of your book.
So the title of the book is Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be.
Okay, that's sweet. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play. It's just going to be a couple minutes, so we'll let the audience enjoy this. And everybody, if you are interested in listening to Jesse's book, here's what you're going to get. So we're going to play a couple of quick pieces, a couple minutes of it. So stand by, Jesse, while I cue this up. Tell us, tell us really about what led you to write a book.
Well, the thing that led me to write a book was actually a friend. At the time, we were colleagues working together, and I had shared my story with him, and my story specifically around my experience with addiction and self-destructive behavior. And he was shocked by it. Like, he was the head finance person for a particular few business units here in Texas. And he's like, Jess, I just can't believe that you have led that kind of life. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, it just seems like you've got it all together. I'm like, oh, heck no, man, I'm a mess, and I've been a mess.
Yeah.
And so we kind of left it at that. Then a few days later, we connected again, and he's like, Jess, you need to share your story. And I said, yeah, I do stuff on social media. He's like, no, you need to write a book because you gave me hope for somebody that I had already given up on.
Wow.
Because he said that somebody is going through the consequences of living a self-destructive life. And I just thought it was hopeless. But you're living proof that it's not hopeless because you're on the other end of it. And so now I am excited about getting re-engaged and supporting my person. And when he told me that, I'm like, son of a gun. Now this thing has purpose.
That's awesome.
Okay. From that perspective, okay, I'll do it.
Everybody, we're here in Plato's Garden. We're having an open conversation. We're connecting the dots between all 3 areas, the world he grew up in, Jesse, the professional life, and basically himself personally. That's why we do this, because all the nuggets of who we are, who we become is in that. Many people, by the way, Jesse, get on a show and they'll just talk about their business. Or they'll send the host 5 questions, ask me these. It's like, no, we don't do that. So what we're seeing on the screen there, if you're on the video feed, is you're seeing Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be. This is on Spotify. So if you're on Spotify, you can go grab this now. It doesn't cost anything, I believe. And you can listen. So what we heard Jesse do is tell us a bit about why he wrote the book. I'm going to remove that off the screen. But I'm also going to say that all over the world, there's people who I'm sure are reading your book, and your book will get great interest. There's always one person out there, though, who admits that they didn't know you had a book. And by the way, Jesse, the power of the live, this guy didn't know you had a book.
My buddy Josh. That's awesome. I love
So,
that.
so there's Josh. We put it up on the podcast listeners. We put up on the screen, Josh, Luker. I hope I said that right. He's on LinkedIn. This is how bad of a friend I am. I didn't know Jesse wrote a book. Hey, Josh, I'm expecting, Josh, by the time we're done this, you're going to go buy the paperback. You're going to go listen to the Spotify today, and you're going to post a review for his book. How about that? And then, Josh, you can come back on the show with Jesse and talk about it. I want to just ask you again to hold the book up. This time, just hold it in front of you. And thank you. And I want to just show that I have one here. So this is really interesting because I get a lot of books sent by guests. But this one arrived, Jesse, when you're making an impact in the world, you're making a difference, trying to be different. It arrived in a black wrapper with white crayon on it. You know, some of those things you used to go when you were a kid, you were curious about, you know, it starts with a P and you go buy it and you want to put it in an envelope, take it home so your mom and dad didn't see it. It arrives in the house and I'm going like, how did that get through customs to Vancouver without being ripped open? Anyway, I'm playing with you here. We got another comment that was just come up here and I'll have to read it before I see Jesse next Thursday. There you go. And by the way, stay on, Josh. We're going to get into some of this. All right, let me just give you a thought here and get you to talk about this. I like how you've structured this book, and everyone, in each of the chapters, it's a storytelling type of narrative, but you've got some nuggets, little pop-out boxes. So I'm going to read one, and I'm just going to ask you to riff on it. Tell us what you mean. And this is page 14. I still hadn't come to terms with the fact that the short sprints of sobriety were the result of letting people speak into my life. Before you talk about that quote, fill us in from the beginning. So let's start the story from the beginning of life. You were born, Jesse, to a mom and a dad, I'm assuming. Tell us about that chapter of your life. Just fill in the blanks.
Like early on, so born here, San Antonio, south side of San Antonio, Texas. Dad's a plumber. Mom at the time was working in home health, going to night school, carrying the load. Had a lot of fun, more fun than anybody should have in middle school and high school. Developed a habit for, how should I say, chasing fleeting fulfillment, which turned into addiction. Got into the construction industry right out of high school, and it was absolutely the best environment for me because of my learning style. Classroom environment is not conducive to or maybe best, it's not suited to maintain or manage my energy. But in construction, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is where I belong. And I also had some really maladjusted behavior, high achiever, hardworking. Probably the high achieving stuff came from always seeking affirmation and recognition from people because I didn't accept myself. And so on the exterior, it looked like everything was fine. I was progressing rapidly in whatever position or role I had. And I was also coping with the demons, problems, issues that I had with substances and anything else. I learned along the way that my addictions switch, like they change costumes, right? It could be alcohol, it could be running, it could be work. How
old were you when those main things, the addiction started?
You know, the very first time I used or put any controlled substances into my body, I was in 9th grade. So what's that? 13 or 14 years old. And at that time it was fun, right? Like it was partying. It was just, I mean, I say fun, it was very risky, but I didn't necessarily have the chemical dependency yet. It was more an emotional relationship that I had with these different things so that I could like disconnect and numb. I didn't even know that that's what I was doing with these things.
Yeah.
In my head, it was just, I'm a teenager, we're having fun.
Yeah.
As I got older into my 20s, then it became a really like a necessity for me to deal with things and function on the regular.
Let me ask you a question. So you mentioned, and by the way, we're going to honor your parents. I always say this, Jesse, and I have a bit of a story with my childhood that we learned later in life. I mean, I hated my father, and I say that now with loving grace. He died in 2018, dude. I didn't really know him because he left home when I was 12. However, we love our parents later in life because we figure out all these things. And so you talked about your mom and your dad, and you talked about that fairly quickly. Your father, was your father left home? Was he an alcoholic? Was there any alcoholism or addiction in the family? What was going on in your life at home?
No. Beautiful question. So, yes, absolutely. It's interesting because on one side of the family, there is mental health challenges. And on the other side of the family, the main challenge is addiction.
Yeah.
And when I say on one side of the family, it's just there's a high frequency of people that have or are dealing with substance abuse on one side, and on the other side, a whole high frequency of people that have or are dealing with mental health issues. And so coming up, my dad was, I can't classify him as an addict, except that I know that he regularly drank and regularly maybe made that sort of consumption a priority. When I was younger, as I think I was right around high school when he changed his life. He was gone, right? He had a different family at that time. He's been sober since then, and that's kind of when I started.
And now, how old is your dad still with you? Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive and shrinking. You know,
How old is he? How old is he?
Dude, this is how close I am with family. I'm not sure. My guess is he's probably in his late 60s or 70s.
Okay, so we have to clarify, when you talk about he was shrinking, you're not talking about the other things other than the fact that his stature as a man getting old. This is a family show. Just want to check that. We're here with Jesse Hernandez, everybody, talking about his book, Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be. And this is about storytelling. And so I'm one of those hosts who riff with you. So you sent me on a journey in my brain. I just want to share a few things with you. Now, my father was in the military, commanding officer in the military. I was born on a base, actually, in the UK. But my dad didn't drink, didn't smoke, Jesse. He was actually a Mormon. And then he's a Hindu because I'm from Fiji, or my parents are Fijian, but then India, with roots to India. I was born in England, though, before I came to Canada at age 5. But Dad became an alcoholic. And Dad was an alcoholic, and at age 12, he left home. And so what went on in my home shaped me, and it was mentally and physically abusive. So one of the things I was thinking about before I came to the show with you is going to be a remarkable conversation, because for me, talking to you and reading your book is like looking in the mirror a bit and a reflection of what my father's life was. And I think it's such a gift, because I've grown just from reading the book and understanding more about what he might have gone through. A couple more quick things about Dad. He left home, but it took losing his job. He broadsided a woman in a car and a baby and almost killed those guys. He was drinking, driving a lot. He was very charismatic, had a lot of buddies, and he never went to jail. But he lost everything, including his family. And that's what led him to AA. And God bless him. I only connected with him a few months before he passed. I was praying a lot, and my God gave me the wisdom to go see my dad. And then 3 months later, he had a heart attack, and he passed. I want to honor you that you have that relationship with the Father, and honor him because he's gone through AA. And when we get you back into your story, you're very heroic in terms of what you've done with your life, but how you're helping others through this book. So now that I've connected with you, there's some oxytocin flowing that, when we had these fathers and these stories. Let's go back into the story again. So there you are, you're age 13, getting into the addictions. There was mental health and things from the family. Take us forward from there. What happened from that point? How did you navigate into life?
Yeah, so once I'll have to straight up say my sprints of sobriety early on were motivated by the state of Texas. I'm fortunate in that I didn't hurt or kill anybody in all the stuff that I was doing back then. But I was never motivated to stop drinking, using, etc. until I got arrested. And I got arrested a bunch of times.
What was one thing you were arrested for?
DWI. So every arrest that I've ever had in my life are in 2 buckets. Actually 3. 1, minor in possession of alcohol. I don't even know how many arrests I have, but I know I got a bunch of those when I was partying in high school.
Yeah.
The other is public intoxication. And then the other is driving while intoxicated. So my entire my resume is 100% associated with the negative consequences of consuming alcohol. And early on, I still didn't think I had a problem. I just had bad luck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that true? I mean, how many times I heard that? And my dad always used to say that, you only turn to, I guess it's like the hero's journey narrative, Joseph Campbell, which I believe in, that you go through enough hell and you get angry and you go, you know what? Then you turn, but usually that's at the point where something real bad has happened.
Yep.
And you're not in your head there. I want to go back to the childhood and just share a thought with you and have you talk about it, because you brilliantly brought in the topic of mental health. Did you know, or you may not, that I found a research article through the stuff I'm doing with neuroscience. And the article, it talks about something called maltreatment. And it's a term used. And maltreatment can be as simple as and it generally affects children, right? So it can be a child growing up where the mom and dad are busy leaders and they rush out of the home every day and they neglect and they don't say goodbye, I love you. So the child grows up or it could be alcoholic addicted parent in that environment. What happens in the brain is up to about age 25, that's when the neural circuits are all laid down. It's like the roadmap of thoughts and emotions. And the amygdala is the emotional center. This paper, and it changed my life, Jesse, and I only found it a few years ago, because all my life, like something you said, which sparked this thought in me, I was blaming myself with shame that I couldn't have relationships in public as a CEO. That's what my trade was. As a dad, like everybody else was, I wasn't healthy. Maltreatment, basically what it can do is it can keep the sympathetic nervous system at a high level, which is because you're under stress all the time. So the cortisol in the brain's flooding the brain. So children aren't supposed to be living that way. And what happens is that the stress management system in the brain, which allows you to have healthier relationships and deal with things like being a leader and this and that in the future, actually it doesn't develop right. And they've done MRIs on children and youth if their brains to find the amygdala has scarring on it. So here's the thing I want to say to you. I lived a good part of my life till I did my self-work, not understanding, and I used alcohol just to numb it and things like that. That's why your book really connected to me. But it wasn't until I did the deep work and understood why those things were going on in my head, and then found guys like you to help me move through it and got rid of the shame, which is an emotion that sits beside guilt, but shame leads to depression, other tough things. So take us back into that. Tell me what you think about that, and what I know that you know what I'm talking about. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. I read this book. It's titled Silent Seduction.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those books, right? It's a book about maladjusted behavior. And when I was reading that book, I'm like, son, they're talking about me. So like, the era I grew up in, we were latchkey kids. Mom had 2 or 3 jobs. She was going to night school. Dad was wherever dad was. And so we were pretty independent in terms of, we didn't have a whole ton of supervision. But that didn't really affect me as much as the situation that I was kind of the emotional support for adults. And what it created this cycle for me, and it's depicted in the book so clear. I'm like, man, these people must have been watching me. I was the emotional support, and I received a lot of attention, right? Because I was the emotional support. And then because they were adults, they would have adult things happen. They would go do things with their special people, and my attention was taken away. So what I experienced was abandonment. And then they needed emotional support. I knew that would get me attention, so I would give more support and be on the high. And then they would go do life, and I would lose my attention, and I was abandoned. So it was this cycle of needing the attention, and the only way I knew how to do it was to be the resource that I really wasn't equipped to be. And I also didn't understand what was happening, right? I took it personally, and it was just a human thing that was happening. And so what that ended up creating within me was like tremendous defense mechanisms so that I would not feel or have that sense or experience of abandonment. And so it was complete isolation. I'm very social, got a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Nobody really knew me. And that isolation is what led to me dealing with my stuff with chemicals, etc.
Wow, thank you, everybody. We're with Jesse Hernandez. Jesse, we got to honor you for being vulnerable. That word vulnerability is in your bio. It's everywhere. You want to know something really fascinating? Is that I do some coaching, executive coaching, and I have a survey, and I asked leaders across my platform, is vulnerability a strength or a weakness? 99% say it's a weakness. Yep. And yet being able to be vulnerable, which isn't blubbering and all, it's actually opening yourself up. That's the pathway, right? You're teaching us something here. Come back, everyone, to this part of the show and listen to what Jesse just said. I'm on page 24 in the book here, and I just want to read something and have you talk about it again. This is a gift for podcast hosts because all I have to do is find your little nuggets in the book and say, speak. You put it on page 24, it says, it was scary. The smallest action seemed impossible. Going from the idea to action, silent to heard, self-preservation to serving others is a gigantic leap for anyone. What do you mean?
Oh, so that one comes from, I'm people that know me like Josh and other folks out there in the Omniverse. On the outside, it looks like I'm just kind of running wild, shooting from the hip, always doing something, always taking action. And, through reflection and all that good stuff, meditation, counseling, and therapy, I am biased to action, right? If I have an idea, I'm going to take action. If I see a problem, I'm going to do something about it. And so but times a million compared to like most people.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, where does it come from? And that little quote, right? It was scary. The smallest action seemed impossible. Going from idea to action, silent to heard, self-preservation to serving others is a gigantic leap for anyone. That's in the story of when I was a little guy. I was a witness to abuse. And for longer than necessary, I did nothing. I hid, I was scared, I was terrified, and I did nothing. And it never changed until I finally mustered the courage to do something about it.
Yeah.
And what happened, small little action that I took as a little bitty guy, it changed things for the people that were experiencing the abuse. What happened within me, it should have been like a triumphant moment. I mean, even now it hurts.
Yeah.
It wasn't a triumphant moment. It was a moment of conviction, meaning all that abuse that they suffered before I took action was my fault, because I could have taken action sooner had I not been concerned about myself.
Wow.
So that little feeling, that pain has never gone away. And so when there's things that I am compelled to take action upon, I will, because that time, that space of me seeing something and ignoring it and leaving it alone makes me complicit. I know that may not be true, but that's what I believe and feel, and that's what that's talking about.
Well, let me riff on that with you. First of all, you've opened up my brain's gone in a journey now in so many directions. Yep. It's just a great conversation, Jesse. I so honor you. That this part, so the abuse piece, now, obviously you don't have to get into the details. I've read your book and I've heard you talk about that in there as well. Was it in your home life or was it external from your home life?
Yes and yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So I can just speak to my experiences so that, makes you comfortable if you want to talk more about any of that.
Right.
And that mine was in my home. So my father was very physical towards my mom. I was the middle guy, but I was like the black and blue kid. And I say that now tongue in cheek. I got brown skin. So it's like, yeah, it's gotten better. But I took the heat from a militaristic father who was drunk most of the time. Okay. What's interesting, and I've learned this about millions of children who grow up into youth and adults who go into the world and actually, I believe, become leaders. Think about what you just said, which is a point you just taught us. That, man, I was actually navigating as a leader, carrying, and I learned carrying shame that what happened at home was my fault, that I never did anything about it. And I have a psychiatrist I work with now since I had a brain injury years ago, and Dr. Ron, and he talks to me about that. He said, you know what the number one issue is for men that they struggle the most with is abandonment. The number one for women tends to be sexual abuse.
Yep.
Dude, so you and I connect, brother. My dad left at 12, but I didn't get the love. I mean, I had to get straight A's and do this and that. But so for all of those out there listening to Jesse, take note. If you haven't taken the journey to stop blaming yourself, shaming yourself, thinking that you could have done something, listen to Jesse. He's going to teach you and it'll change your life. Jesse, let's go to another thing in the book here. I want to ask you to talk about page 30. And everyone, you got to get the book, and I also call on you to do a review and post it on Amazon for him. Yeah, let's do dueling books. No. I got the back cover, you got the front. You see, there's little stickies all over mine. Somebody said to me the other day, they watched me, they said, yeah, you probably took a sticky thing and just do that to the book. I said, no, I read this book pretty carefully. All right, here we go. Inside, I was terrified. I had no idea what the role was, and all of a sudden, I'm going from being just a plumber. Tell us about
that. That's a pretty recent story. I'm going to say 3, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
First, I'll say why I thought it was important to share the story. The reason I wanted that story in the book was to help people that have the criminal record or don't have all the credentials and highlights and degrees and certificates. I wanted them to read that story and say, oh, if that dummy can do it, so can I. What was happening at that time was I worked for a local mechanical contractor here in San Antonio for 17 years. And I had been recruited to go serve for the largest builder in the States as a regional asset, meaning I was going to be flying all over the place and I was going to be supporting business units and projects within the central United States on their change efforts, their improvement efforts. So I was working with this small company for 17 years, not tiny, but it wasn't gigantic. To all of a sudden working with the people that were the authority, right? They were the titans of industry from my perspective as a subcontractor. Now I was going to be one of them. And I was coming in out of the gate as a regional asset with significant responsibility. Without a college degree, with the criminal record, I was on felony probation at the time.
How old was that? How old were you roughly?
Oh my God. Let's see, how old am I now? I'm going to say it was 7 years ago. So 41 years old.
Okay.
Maybe 42,
all right.
Somewhere around there. So not too long ago. So I had this pile of evidence that said, I'm just a plumber. I'm in trouble. I'm not equipped to do this work.
Yes.
And I had this little opportunity because somebody believed in me to go and serve in a greater and more profound manner. And more importantly, learn a ton about myself.
Who believed in you? Who is that you're referring to?
So Mike Hyman was the individual who recruited me for this job. And as that, and I'm like, why are you picking me? Like, this is a pretty significant role. You've got people, 10,000 plus employees there. Why are you bringing me? And it was kind of, he's never really answered it directly, which I think is a good thing. But he was kind of like, Jess, it's the way you can connect with people. It's the way you can get people excited about things. All the other stuff, I know that you're smart enough and you work hard. You'll figure all of that out. You'll learn it. But that thing that you do to connect with people and get people excited, that's what we need in this role. And I said, okay, but let me tell you, currently I'm on felony probation, which means I can't leave the county without permission. You want me to travel outside of the state. Like, I'm going to have to get a court order for that. There were so many things, Tom, that said, this is a ridiculous idea, but everything within me said, I need to go get this experience. I need to chase this to see what actually happened. I mean, hell, I was leaving a company that I was with them for over 17 years. They were my family. They tolerated all my shenanigans, and I was leaving them to go to go on this big gamble to play in a field that I never played in. And it worked out. It's been pretty amazing.
Well, let me jump in there. First of all, congratulations on that. Everyone, it is in the book. Jesse, hold the book up again so we can get a view of it with you, and just tell us the title again. Becoming
the Promise You Are Intended to Be.
All right. So first of all, as you're watching this, everyone, or listening to the audio version of this on Spotify, his book, listen to your voice. Jesse, you have a projecting, strong, confident voice. Number 2, you have a presence. So, you can figure out what I mean by that yourself, but people have told you that. Yep. So there's something about that I can tell you that people who are broken inside from early years can't always project themselves with that confidence in that. And I know you took a journey to get there. So that's the first thing. You do connect. The other thing I believe in is that all leaders, my definition of a leader, I'll just throw it out there so you can tear it up or have your own, is to create other leaders. It's not about ego, but so if you can't, in the first few minutes, build rapport, trust, make me feel good, dude, I ain't listening to you. And if you come across, and I read this thing in your book, it said, I feared being minimized because I didn't have a college degree and was just a plumber. You know how many millions of people you're speaking for? Because you and I both know, I mean, my dad was an electrician, right? So I never once said, I'm the son of just an electrician, but the world out there is full of ego. And because I worked up into those high levels in my career, and I totally related to what you wrote about that. It's a different world. Some of those people don't work hard. There's a lot of pressure, but the real people who build America, North America, are the ones on the ground who have 2, 3 jobs or barely making ends meet, right? Yeah. They're the ones who don't have degrees. And I think it's one of your presidents, like a quote somewhere I read, said that the world is run by C students. I think it's not Roosevelt, but... And what's interesting is if you just look at Einstein, dropped out of school. Zuckerberg dropped out of school. What's his name? The I won't give him fame because I don't really like his ideas sometimes. But the guy who created Microsoft, same thing.
Yeah.
I want to tell you what impresses me about you. One thing is I think you're. If I do personality science on you, I think you have a very creative brain. You're Matt, and I know you're nodding. Imagine creative. And my stepson, we couldn't keep him in school because he needed to get out of that. Like if you said, sit at a desk, do these 10 things over and over again, no. So you're nodding, right?
Right.
So I think that's another nugget you've taught me from the book and what we're seeing in you is if you have that calling in your gut that I got to go take that job, let's follow your intuition, your gut. That's what you're telling us. And you did it. I want to ask you a question to talk about related to when you got there. You're such a different guy, and you're not one of them. And in the book, you talk about it, and I kind of chuckled a few times. How did you, with all your self-work through therapy and things, how did you actually learn to relate to people in a different way, or did you, to coexist there?
Oh, man, a beautiful question. So there were phases, if you will.
Yeah.
And so for a long period of time, when I first got into like management and leadership roles, I was totally focused on outcomes and how I could accelerate my career. And nobody liked me. And it was very difficult emotionally, but like hell with it. I just need to get the promotion. I need to get the raise.
I have to dig and get you to go deeper. When you say nobody liked me, draw a picture of something you would do that people said, I don't like that guy.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm going to give you a good one. So one day I got a call from the guys and they're like, hey, Jess, we're going to need another handout here because Joe he's got an emergency, he has to leave. And I said, like, okay, what's going on with Joe? He said, well, a family member of his passed away. And so he's packing up so that he can go, which should have been, okay, fine. Let me get you somebody. I didn't say, okay, fine. I said, who passed away? It's his cousin. And I said, his cousin? Like, what's he going to go do? Resurrect his cousin?
Oh, my goodness.
What to do? And like, I wasn't joking.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I thought. How does that work? Does that work?
You could, you know what? You could. Here's the thing: you could just on your podcast bring people on and ask them one question. What is the dumbest thing you've ever said and done to make people like you? And then write a book on that. So here, that's the most interesting thing. But you know what? I can follow my vulnerability sword and tell you that when I first got into at age 31 and dating myself a bit, I became for the first time a C-level CEO of a company. And I like I got immigrant parents. I worked my butt off. Anyway, and I got my first performance review because when you're at that level, the microscope's over you.
Yep.
And they assigned me a coach, Jesse, and they said, this coach followed me around and then she wrote some notes in a report. And she said, here's what came out of it. My first 360, and you can tell us what 360 is so your audience hears that. Yeah. Tom, you're winning awards. You turned the company around because it was a failing company. You're driven. But if you want to be the man, you got to change because people call you arrogant, insensitive, you're grandstanding. And I just my blind spot was so big, I couldn't see it, Jesse. Yep. I hadn't done enough of the reflective work like you have to see it. So take it back to us and give us a word of advice or coaching. If you're talking to me back then, and you know my story, given your story dealing with addiction and how you understand your brain was, give me some coaching. What's something you're going to tell me to do?
The one thing I'll tell you and everybody else that's in that situation is it's the same thing that one of my mentor heroes told me. Said, in business, if you want to be successful and expand your influence, you need to accomplish two things.
Yeah.
You have to deliver financial results and you have to develop people. Delivering financial results is way easier than developing people. And if you only do one, you're going to hit a ceiling and you will be there forever. And if it's the financial results ceiling, you're not going to be appreciated, welcomed, or invited to anything outside of mandatory situations.
Everybody, we're here with Becoming the Promise. You are intended to be the author of that book, Jesse Hernandez Jr. Jesse's going to read to us. Everybody loves an author reading out of the book. Jesse.
Thank you. So I'm going to read story number 6. And the title of the story is, What If Their Formula is Broken? Have you ever seen that person that has unlimited energy, is always inquisitive, always interested, always bugging people, always thinking, always moving, and always acting out? They do exist, and I happen to be one of them. My friends, family, and colleagues always seem to be shocked by my unyielding energy and ravenous appetite to have experience and learn new things. Though they care for me, they react as if I am abnormal, as if there is something wrong with me. They plead for me to just settle down, be satisfied, and be normal. This seemingly innocent conflict has created all kinds of static in my head. The joking comment of "you're just too much," or in today's language, "you're so extra," cuts every time I hear those words. The feeling is similar to being singled out because of the color of my skin. Both of these things are natural parts of me that I didn't choose. These types of comments elicit an almost helpless feeling within me. For a very long time, the playlist in my head said, "What's wrong with me? When will I be normal like everybody else? When will I be calm?" I asked myself these questions all the way up into my 40s. The reality is, my appetite to learn and my enthusiasm about having new, wild, terrifying, scaring, intimidating experiences has not curved. In an effort to satisfy the people in my life who believed me slowing down was of the utmost importance, I did try to apply the medicine that everybody was offering me. I don't know how many times I heard, "Don't worry, when you get married, you'll settle down. You'll find that person, that special someone that is going to make you want to go slower, who is going to make you want to be home." And I'll just tell you, that hasn't happened yet.
That's amazing. We'll give you a virtual applause round there. Oh, that's pretty cool. By the way, have you done any book signings in bookstores or anything like that yet?
I did one book launch when the book released last year in June, and we had a big party. A bunch of my
Yes.
friends and people came. It was awesome, man. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
The coolest thing is when you see, I know I experience it with my own books, but you open the box and you get your books out and you have somebody take an iPhone photo. But everybody, we had the Jesse Hernandez Jr., we had him reading it, as you just heard or saw. And I think it's one of the coolest things, Jesse, when you see an author reading their own words. It not only brings to life, but it etches you into the mind. And that's why I think not only getting the paperback, because you need to have it as a reference, everyone, which I do on my shelf, but I have to keep saying, I'm not plugging Spotify, but I do listen there. It is available in audio. And when audio is different, right? But when you hear your book narrated by your voice, before you even came on my show, I just felt like I knew you. So good job doing that. I chickened out and I had somebody narrate my first book because I couldn't get that confidence. So well done. Let me just go into one more question about the book, and then we're gonna do something fun with you here.
Let's do it.
More fun. This one's probably a deep, big question. My skills grew in direct proportion to the amount of time I put into building them. Now, when you talk about that, I want you to tell us what are some of the top few things you did to build skills. Also, I read in the book some things, you went through some marriage changes too, right? You went through and then there was something you told us in the book about you didn't know what a man's role was. So in terms of this quote, building skills, I'm going to bundle in there. How did you build skills to actually become what you understood was the role of a man, as well as whatever else you're talking about there?
Oh my goodness, that's a big overview.
I know. I know. So, chip away.
Yeah, I'm gonna start at the shallow level, and then we'll go to the deep part. So, in terms of building skills, there was, and I'm gonna for real, the most valuable, and you said it, but the most valuable skill that I have built. Maybe there's two. One is vulnerability. The second is listening. Right. Yeah. Now, in terms of building skills, I have a habit of when I'm focused on something like marathon training, when I was running marathons, I didn't do it on purpose. Now I do. But almost every piece of content that I consume is around the thing that I'm trying to learn or get good at. So when I was marathon running, I was watching all kinds of movies about marathoners and runners and extreme sports and this sort of thing. I was listening to podcasts about running and endurance and all this sort of thing. Right now, I have a big interest in marketing. So guess what? All the content that I'm listening to and taking in is around marketing. And so in terms of building skills at the shallow end, I think it's easy to decide these are the skills that I want to build, and then flood your senses with any and all content associated with the skill so that you can make your own determination of what you want to use and go out and apply. Now, consuming the content is a total waste of time if you're not going to test it, experiment with it, and put it into practice. So that's where the skill building comes. How does that relate to vulnerability? Well, if I'm not an expert at it, I'm going to have to do it messy. I'm going to have to do it wrong. It's going to be sloppy and all the things. But provided that I learn from that experience, that's the point. And so for me to do that, I have to be vulnerable, which means people will critique, judge, and maybe joke about whatever it is I'm doing. And that's part of the deal. That's like, you got to pay to get in the gate.
Yeah. Well, great answer. That I just wrote some notes down here on my paper and just riffing with you. I want to share back what I heard. Do it messy, do it wrong, learn from the experience. There's some Jesseisms. I mean, that is so profound. And you would probably agree too that for somebody who has to do that on their own, it's almost impossible for some people. I go back to just the people I know, including myself, who had messed up thinking patterns because of our childhoods. The brain can't have a positive, negative thought at the same time. So to do the things you've just said, dude, I got to fight the evil, the fear, the I'm not good enough. And I know that you've done a lot of work on that. So that's why I recommend everyone to connect to Jesse as a coach, as a mentor. Hey, Jesse, right now, your career, what you're working in a company, do you have a role in that company?
Yeah. So the company is just me.
Okay.
My business, the way I serve is, I guess the best way to describe it would be consulting. What I specifically do is I help construction leaders make things easier, right? We've got all kinds of issues and problems, continuous improvement efforts, but I dive into the way they communicate, the way they listen, and the way their processes are structured. Um, and I do it in a fun, relaxed way.
Yeah.
Now, I do in-person stuff, and I also have some online products, if you will, that are also intended to help leaders
Sure.
overcome some of those common barriers.
What we'll do at the end, and everybody on the screen, if you're doing the video when it's released, depthbuilder.com is stock taking. That's the website to check that out.
Yeah.
I want to just ask you to take us into something I call the Twilight Zone. And that is, and not to get deep in it because of sake of time, you will have you back. But I have a fascination about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, only because my father was in it for 23 years. I only knew at his funeral because people came up to me and told me the heroic things he did. Like he'd go into prisons and mentor. He'd do men's meditation groups. This was a guy I thought was like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right. and I never knew all that. I've recently had to be at a funeral and speak for a friend who passed away of old age, but spent most of his life in AA. And the route that got him into AA was finding his son hanging by a rope, died by suicide. How do you stay, in your life? How do you fight the addiction and stay off alcohol? What's it like, and what was it like in those rooms, in those meetings? Any thoughts you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer the question of how do I stay sober?
Yeah.
It's by serving others, period.
Awesome.
Bottom line, it's by serving others. And so I have a little thing on my LinkedIn where it says selfish servant. Like that's how I identify.
I love that.
Right. Because yes, I want to serve others and contribute into other people's paths and help them expand their influence. And it's not just because I'm this loving, caring guy. It's for me so that I can stay sober. Like, period. Because part of what gets me off track is when I am doing things to feed my own ego, to feed my own needs. And it's easy to do that. Those things are so easy. And it's a slippery slope. So I have to stay in service to others in order for me to maintain my sobriety. Another thing, maybe a common phrase I've heard in the rooms, is you have to give it away to keep it. Right? Whatever that contentment is, the stable experience, I have to give it away. I have to share it in order to keep it. I can't just keep it for myself. So I remember one of the first meetings I went to, again, court mandated. It's not like I wanted to go. The judge said, I got to do this. And if I don't do this, I'm going to go to jail. And I'm too pretty for jail. So one of the first meetings, the guy was like, dude, I need you to go clean up all the ashtrays. And I said, that's their crap. I ain't cleaning their crap. And so I had a lot of pride, right? I had a lot of,
you did,
that's beneath me type thing. I'm here because the judge told me, y'all need this. I don't. Boy, was I wrong, right? And so, one of the things, the huge takeaway I got way after the fact that I really couldn't put my finger on in the room back then was the demonstration of vulnerability, right? Like some people, I'll say it this way. When I was early on my journey of sobriety, people would ask, like, what are the meetings like? And I was a jerk, right? So I'd say, man, I don't know, but I feel like I need a drink just after the meeting because there's so much like real stuff that people are sharing.
Yes.
In some cases it was whining and complaining, but in some cases it was like real intimate stuff. I'll also share, like, for anybody that's out there that believes or is maybe needs some help, could use some help. visit a bunch of places, because there's a lot of AA group communities in everywhere across all over the world, and they all have a different flavor. They all have a different culture, if you will. And I found a bunch that I'm like, this ain't jive. Like, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
And I finally found a few that was like, oh my God, like, these are my people. This is where I need to be. Now, when I say they were demonstrating vulnerability, it is very simple. They would share their experience, strength, and hope. If they're having a problem, they shared a problem. If they screwed up, they talked about how they screwed up. If they got angry, they talked about why they were angry. If they had an amazing day, they talked about they had an amazing day. Some people won't see that as vulnerability. But when you're saying that, when I am introducing myself, I'm Jesse, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, and this is what I did today. That, to a bunch of strangers, that is vulnerability. And so kind of back to the skill thing earlier, because of the reps that I had over and over of doing that in those rooms with strangers, I built a tolerance for vulnerability, like sharing the dirty details, the dumb, messy stuff that I've done. I have no qualms about it because I know nothing bad's going to happen to me. So that's what you can expect in those rooms.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I've learned a lot. You know, my dad's cake every year. They have the AA cake, and I even kept my dad away from my daughter for 10 years, and it was one of the biggest things I was so upset with myself about, that I couldn't come to terms with it. But there's a lot of children of alcoholic parents that you can find groups you can go. I do some speaking, and one of the things I've just made this journey in my head just recently from talking to people like you and a few others, as I want to go to an AA meeting and actually tell my story of hope, because there's many guys in the room and many people I've met who are in AA that lost their children, and their children aren't involved in my life. My dad wanted me back in his life, his whole life, man, and I deflected it till the end. Then it was too late. I'd love to go and tell a story and say, you know what, inspire them. No matter what, do your stuff. The biggest gift we can give to those folks going through AA is to reconnect. One of the things I really liked about what you said about the work you're doing, and everybody, you need to find Jesse and have a chat with him, is this thing about the connection and serving others. I learned through neuroscience that, we talked about this before you came on, oxytocin flows in the brain. That's the one chemical the brain creates that makes you and I like each other.
Yep.
And what that flows when I think I have something in common with you. And it flows when I'm doing anything in my life that's joyful. So here's the cool thing Jesse's taught us, everyone. When you turn to service with others, you can never have a feeling that's not full of joy. Is that not true, Jesse?
100%.
Like right now, we're at 1 hour, and we'll go a little bit over here, but everybody says when they come on the show, and I say after, wow, an hour went by.
Like that, yep.
So, well, guess what? We're not sitting here complaining and reading facts, figures. We're telling stories, and we're connecting, and that's this thing. We're getting our flood of oxytocin. The one thing I thought I wanted to emphasize that you said before we turn to the next short piece is, I agree with you. I've done a lot of counseling. When I went into mental health, depression from my concussion, I fell on my head and I got a brain injury years ago. I had my first suicidal ideation, so I get that. It scared the hell out of me, Jesse. Yeah. And I've had a counselor, the first one, and I kind of fired them because they put their head down and they just let me talk and regurgitate crap. And yeah, exactly. And so what Jesse's taught us is find the group that fits. But what I learned about that from a neuroscience and a psychology point of view is you can get secondary trauma, it's called, where when everything you hear and visualize goes in your brain and gets put in there. And I started coming out of those things going like, all I did was regurgitate all my problems. And so how do I get the brain on the positive side? Like, I listen to you and I'm inspired because you turn everything it's like the alchemist. You turn everything, your shit, into something really positive. Yes. And I know, man, I want to say I love you and I love your story. I know that in your mind, every moment of the day, you're fighting demons. Let's not gloss over that. But the way you turn things into the positive, that is skill. That is why we honor you. So now, for the next segment, you ready for this? We're going to take you into a new segment I've been doing called Imagining AI. Yeah. Right. We're not here to debate whether AI is a good thing or not. I embrace it. I think it's pretty cool. us what's your hobby? What do you do for fun? What's one of your hobbies?
Oh man, this one's a shameful hobby. So one of the things I do, there's two things. I love to go to the theaters on Friday or Saturday, 10 a.m. first showing, because there's nobody in there.
Love it.
And I can just watch the movie and take it in with super buttery popcorn and a large freaking diet Pepsi or diet Coke. Like,
I love it.
That's it.
All right. Well, we know that Jesse's not a health doctor. That's for sure. But I love what you just told us. So we might have you back on to talk about movies in the future. By the way, you said your big thing is about marketing now. Did you ever see the movie The Founder about McDonald's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You talk about threads in that story that relate to what some of the things you went through in your life.
Yes.
Like,
so the one with Michael Keaton, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just on that, what was there one single thought that stood out? I know I'm putting you on the spot about that movie.
No, it's perfect. This is going to be out in left field, but there's a scene where they're drawing on, it's like on a tennis court. They're kind of drawing
Yes,
the orientation of the different things and the flow of the people through the work. Yeah. The reason that stood out to me is because that's some of the work that I do in process improvement and studying and analyzing the way work is executed out on the job site. It's that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what we do. That's what I do. This is so awesome.
That is, bless you, man. I remember that scene exactly. And I think the way I remember was what you said exactly. They were having a problem because the burger, I think I worked at McDonald's when I was 16. So I did a lot in lobby and filet of fish grill. Some of the stuff was fun, but they drew out sort of the kitchen, the small imprint kitchen that they designed and how a burger gets made in like 1 minute, right? Yep. And then they were trying to shrink that footprint and talking about process orientation, which you and I get. And it was brilliant. My other one that stood out, and then we'll go to this Imaging AI, is when he divorced his wife. And the interesting thing I had in my gut through that whole part of their journey was she wasn't on the same page with his vision.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is a tough one because if your faith is Christianity or whatever your faith is, there's rules, right? Yeah. But I really believe this, Jesse, and this is something I'm just going to put out there, not projecting on you, that when you're married to somebody who comes from a background like yours, with addiction, with alcoholism, who goes into being a leader and basically being a change maker, if the person in our life is not supporting our journey, standing in the way, I believe that a change has to happen. Either I have to go get some help to get tougher and deal with that, the relationship break down. So what happened there was his wife never accepted what he was doing. And Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, where there was a chapter called People Quit When They're 2 Feet from Gold. She didn't believe, she just thought he was a crackpot, which he kind of was like a marketing guy, but that's what your story is to me. Everybody, this man here, Jesse, he tries different things. He gets kicked in the head. He gets back up. Goodness gracious, you've got these records from things you've done wrong, and a guy says, we want to promote you to this part of the company, and you're going like, okay, let's do it. If I fail, I fail. I'll learn from it. What is that? So imagining it with AI. So I went into my AI collaborator tools, and I said, here's a man, Jesse Hernandez. I've told AI a little bit about your background, your book. I told them a lot of stuff about what I felt the transition was within your life, to the broken guy who had all these challenges, rooting from his childhood, to the man who was here kind of in the middle, to the man who, what's it going to be like in the future? What are you going to be in the future? Do you really want to hear what AI had to say?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Here's the slide. And you're going to get a copy of some of this stuff. So AI created 3 visual images. That's what I asked it to do, and I collaborated a bit. Number 1 image we're going to see is the former Jesse. This image captures his earlier struggles with identity, addiction, and personal challenges depicted in a bleak setting. Here we go. And all I want from you, and it comes on, is to breathe and give me one emotion you're experiencing.
Oh, yeah, that feels, that emptiness. It reminds me of the emptiness.
Amazing. Everybody, we're doing imagining with AI here. And just think about this, Jesse, the power of visualization, which you teach in your work. That image you could just sit and think about for thousands of years.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next. All right, Jesse doing good. This image shows Jesse as a confident leader and author, engaging with construction workers, sharing his insights, and symbolizing his transformation and positive impact. Are you ready?
Come on.
Come on. And then again, tell me your emotions. Talk to me.
I think that's how I see myself and how I pray people don't see me.
Now, tell me about what you mean by that, how you pray people don't see you. Tell me about that.
So, like, I see the guy, he's wearing a tie and a coat. And so what I'm perceiving and looking at that image is like super glossy, super polished, sales-y, which, that's necessary. And that's how, like, all my insecurities are right there in that.
Beautiful. So let's riff on that. So you open this up, and again, every time you speak, you add value. I'm just going to interpret what you said in my knowledge of the brain. Basically, most of what we take into our brain actually develops a picture of what we're seeing and then tells us what to think, feel, and do. So everything Jesse said that he felt was positive, and then the constructive things I don't like, comes from within your insecurities within you. And that's the thing that for all the leaders out there, if you're like me, when I'm on podcast, Jesse, when I'm talking to you, the number one thing going through my head is, I don't look good enough. I don't know if he's going to like me. I think I'm a loser. Like, honestly, these things play, and it's all internal self-talk. And like Jesse teaches us, you have a choice. You can choose to believe that or not. This is what the world thinks of you, Jesse, after everything I've studied. Not that you have to wear a tie, but you're a man who's an authority. So let's go to the last one. I love it. Future vision of Jesse. This is going to blow your mind, I hope. This image portrays Jesse in a futuristic construction setting, interacting with advanced technology, representing his forward thinking and influence in the evolving industry. Are you ready?
Yeah.
There we go.
Ooh, I like that.
Tell me everything that comes to mind, the thoughts, emotions, single words.
So what it did is it took me back to a conversation with an ex of mine. I don't know if you've seen The Watchmen, the movie The Watchmen.
That one, no.
So there's this Dr. Manhattan who's like a super, super awesome thing and can split up into millions of people who appears to be present, but also, being intimate and also working and getting things done. That's the anyways, my ex said, that's how you are. Like, you seem to be present, but you're actually working on other stuff in your head. I'm like, I don't know if that feels like a compliment, but I don't think you meant it to feel like a compliment.
Yeah. What an evocative picture, though. Look at the bionic arm there.
I know that's what I wish I could put a suit on so that I can be focused and present and connected from a human perspective, and also process the thoughts and my ideas by clicking some buttons to get some balls rolling to make things better for people, like in the moment.
Absolutely.
That's what I see.
Now let's go backwards. I'm just going to go backwards and flash the three pictures. So I'm going to thinking of putting a futures thing where I have three of them on one at the end. This is your life flashing. If we use these three images, and behind it millions of words, right? From there to the future. Isn't that incredible?
That is pretty awesome. Yeah.
You're awesome, man. All right. So as we get into the last segment, I've got some things to honor you with. So you're ready for me to do that. I know you are.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to turn this camera on. I have my action camera on in the studio. Everybody have my note paper here, and I write notes. And I have come up with 4 words that I want to honor you with. These are leadership words. My background goes back for decades in leadership, and I'm learning from you still. And these words I write as you talk. 1, selfish servant. That's a new phrase that now is in my book, selfish servant. Number 2, love. It comes out of you, and I feel it. And I want to say to you that you are a person who can be loved, and you are a good person. And when you're with me, I feel that authenticity, despite everything you've told us you means. It's a gift. Number 3 is wisdom. The difference between, knowledge and time is wisdom. What you've been through, you've got a lot to share. And number 4 is, in the word author comes from authority. You're an authority on this topic that you teach. So congratulations. And now we're going to induct you into the Quiet Warrior community. This is where I get to feel grateful. So let me tell you what I'm going to show you in a minute. There's a little card that comes with it. This is a challenge coin. Do you know of these? What they are? For the audience, challenge coins surfaced in World War I. The practice of carrying a coin designated specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces, carrying your coin all times, presenting it when you were challenged to prove connection affiliation. They had fun. If they didn't have your coin on, you'd buy a drink at the officers club or whatever. So when I started the show, I wanted to have something that bonded all the Quiet Warriors, those who, like you, and they're rare people. We now have 270 of these circulating in the world in 17 countries, I think. So I had a coin created. They're hand-painted and crafted and minted. So raised lettering. The front is the image of the show, but the back, oh my goodness, I know I'm getting excited. That's the hero's journey narrative by Joe Campbell, which is the dark night of every step of what you did in your life, going from the dark night of the soul through to finding why am I here to serving. So this is going to come to you, and welcome to the Quiet Warrior community.
Thank you.
We're going to get a chance to give you a virtual applause. I'd like to wrap up giving you, my friend, the last word. Where can we get a hold of you? Oh, no, wait a minute. I lied. I've got one more thing. Can you give me another minute?
You got it, brother. Yeah.
While I'm doing that, just talk to the audience, whatever you want to say. I'm just trying to find something here.
Yeah, I want them to know the origin of the title. When I was in rehab the last time, I had one of the counselors call me out. He said, Jess, you're pretty good at admitting you have a problem, but you haven't accepted.
Wow.
And I said, what the hell do you mean? You're just playing with words. He says, no, you haven't accepted that if you continue living life the way you're living it, you will never become the promise you are intended to be. And in that moment, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I still can't explain it. And I think we all have this thing within us that tells us and signals to us what we can do, what we can contribute, and what we can be. And for so many reasons, we suppress it.
That's so awesome. I mean, going back to a teaching moment on the show, everybody, and just listen to that last piece again. Lots behind that, and then pick up the phone or email and connect and talk to Jesse. Jesse, I'm going to honor you now with a international review for your book. I've written it. It's posted. It's been accepted on Amazon.
Nice.
So what I have for you, Jesse, is I have the Amazon posted one, but I also have written a long version for you. This is from me because Amazon doesn't want too much detail. Yep. And everyone, here's what I'm calling on your audience to do. Authors aren't known unless people read their books, right, Jesse? So I'm calling on everyone, and I've written and published myself. It's hard. So you want to go and get the book. Jesse will tell us at the end we'll get it. But then you write a review on Amazon, you give it a rating, and you write your heart out. Keep it arm's length, because if you say, I know Jesse, great guy, they won't put it up because it's biased. And the more reviews get, the more the bookstores and people out there will actually, right, Jesse, distribute the book. All right. So here's what I wrote for you. I have a little vision challenge here, so I'm just going to lean in. The title of the review, A Transformative Journey Through Resilience and Recovery, 5-star out of 5-star, posted May 6th on Amazon. I tried to get May 4th so I could say May the 4th be with you, but I couldn't do it.
That would have been cool.
All right, so I'm just going to read it. Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be by Jesse D. Hernandez Jr. is a profound narrative that captures the essence of overcoming adversity through resilience and self-discovery. Hernandez's storytelling prowess shines as he recounts his battles with addiction, encounters with the legal system, and the challenges of growing up with a single parent. His personal account of losing and rediscovering his identity offers a raw and relatable perspective and resonates deeply. The book is structured in a narrative style filled with compelling stories that are both engaging and easy to follow. Each chapter concludes with highlighted key highlights and learnings, which serve as invaluable gems for personal growth. The perfect length of the book neither too long nor short, invites readers to dive into the stories that deepen with each read. Listening to the audiobook version narrated by Jesse himself adds an extra layer of connection and authenticity, making the experiences even more impactful. As someone who has witnessed addiction firsthand, this book provided me with insights into what life might have been like for my own father, enriching my understanding and empathy. I highly recommend this book to anyone on a quest to become the alchemist of their life. Whether you're seeking understanding, happiness, or a way to cope with the challenges of addiction, either personally or vicariously, this book is a treasure trove of inspiration. Dive into this mind-shifting experience and let it move you towards the positive influence you're meant to be. Congratulations, my friend.
Damn, thank you. That was beautiful. Wow.
And you've got other reviews on there, so fantastic. So now we're going to ask you to take the last word. Anything you want to say about today's experience, and also something, tell them where they can get a hold of you in the book, whatever. Go for it.
Yeah. One, Tom, thank you for the depth and care that you put into the questions and framing this conversation around the book. And the AI experience. That was unique. I like that. And for listeners out there, I want to challenge you to be kind to yourself and share a smile with somebody, because that alone will transform your life and the life of somebody else. If you want to get a hold of me, depthbuilder.com. That's my website. You can find all my socials. LinkedIn is where I hang out the most. So if you look up Jesse Depth Builder, you'll find me, and I'm hyperactive on LinkedIn there as well.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Jesse. And everybody, find that true passion and purpose, like you've heard here from Jesse Hernandez, and live the life that you deserve and desire. Jesse, it's been a real honor. Thank you for being on the show. We'll talk to you again. We'll have you back again for sure. All right, my friend.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
All right, we're going to remove the stream. Stand by, Jesse.